here we are. This is S.x Love Psych3delics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat. Bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
Yeah. And I remember us talking on the phone. You were talking to me and you were like, I don't know. I feel called to do this, bring in the erotic, the sexual energy into the meditation practices. I was like, fuck yeah, girl. And you're like, I was like, yeah, of course, duh. And you're like, but I don't know how the world is going to take this. How's my audience going to take that? And so for people out there who are tapping into their sexuality, into their erotic power, into just pleasure, like the concept of pleasure in their body, how were you able to embrace that publicly and claim that publicly, that this is how you are operating now? And
Thanks for asking.
managing that reflection, or the challenge of the world, or
Yeah, I think it's like anything that you're afraid of, that the anticipation of it is so much more intense than the actual thing. Like if you have a tough conversation you have to have with a friend or a roommate or a parent, it's like the anticipation makes you a little sick and you're so scared of it and you avoid it. And then when you have it, it's like, oh, great. Okay. And I felt like I spent years preparing and posturing and getting my audience ready and warming them up. And then it was like, when it happened, it was just like, oh yeah, girl, high five, let's go. We were prepared to lose like at least 10% of our audience, at least 10% of our mailing list. Like we had prepared the business for that. And all we really got was like celebration and high five. And it felt like an indicator that the world is really ready, that they're just like we're in this psychedelic revolution. I think we're on the cusp of a sexual revolution as well. And thanks largely to the work that you've been doing as well. I really want to acknowledge the roads that you've been paving and the legitimacy that you've been bringing by bringing you bravely this work to YPO and to conferences and to businesses. But for me, it was, I do think I did a good job preparing the audience. Like, I think I really took the steps, like the evolution of intimacy, just like you wouldn't want someone to walk up to you at a bar and be like, hey, do you want to sleep with me? I mean, maybe some people would, but that might be a little too far, too fast for most of us. I felt like I warmed up the audience and kept on getting consent. Like, is this something that you want to know about? This is where we're going. And I did spend 3 years helping to create new language around this. So for example, like sex magic is amazing and it's changed my life. And if I want to go to like Dallas, Texas, or Oklahoma and do a workshop in this, I think calling it sex magic might create more of a contraction because the word sex can be inflammatory. The word magic can be confusing to people. And so instead, we're simply calling it pleasure prayer, where it's like, yeah, you're using your pleasure to pray. And so the whole movement is called Sacred Secret, which I hope like it helps people to lean in. And it's just very simply this idea that we can use the most creative force on the planet to manifest whatever we want. And so that it's been really fun. But how I prepared myself personally for it was just like coming back to the truth, tell the truth. Like, this is who I am now. I don't want to hide who I am. I don't want to pretend to be someone who I was 3 years ago. And I think that authenticity and truth, people always appreciate it. Even if they don't agree with it, even if they don't like it, there's an appreciation and a respect for it because it's true. Like the truth feels good in our bodies, even if we don't prefer it. And so that has been very liberating.
Yeah, I mean, when we're authentic, it takes less energy to manage. There's no protector parts that are taking up energy because it's trying to protect. It's like if I'm authentic, I've created an intrinsic sense of safety, and I probably have resources in my environment that help me to feel safe as well. And I think there's something really magnetic to that. People want to be around authenticity and openness so that they don't have to be managing all these fears and shames and parts inside too.
Totally. And then that magnetism is the name of the game, right? Like that's what we're doing. That's why the sexual energy can be a manifesting tool, is because it quite literally is magnetic. You're utilizing the electromagnetic field around your head, your heart, and your hoo-ha to magnetize the things that you want to bring in. And yes, we're using head, heart, and hoo-ha, which Regina is like, come on, girl, just say the P word. I'm like, I am all for it. But again, I got to know my audience. And I really love alliteration.
That's important too. The difference between authentic and knowing your audience. How can we be authentic and still use the terminology that would that they would understand or that they would be receptive to? Because if we're trying to, we don't all live in a, what do you call that, echo chamber? That wouldn't help this work
Yes.
spread. We
Yeah, we
have
don't
to
need to
learn.
preach to the converted, right? And I think this is one of my gifts, is to help to bring esoteric concepts to a more mainstream audience. And so it's like, I want to, and it felt like very clear that that was the imperative I was getting from nature. It was like, hey girl, you know what you did for meditation for 13 years? You know, you helped to bring it to a mainstream audience. Well, now it's time to do that for sacred sexuality. And so here we are.
Here we are. Here we are.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to s.xlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on S.x Love Psychedelics.